My name is Rachel Rubin, and I was 15 before I ever met somebody who struggled with addiction. Or so I thought. I began spending my summers volunteering in an inpatient treatment facility for women and children in my hometown. It's called Spirit of Woman. I worked in the child care facility alongside these women in the program, and I was stunned by how different our lives were. It was through these women that I began to understand how a person's experience with poverty, with homelessness, with domestic abuse, with hunger, with incarceration can't be divorced from their addiction, and how compounding structural factors can cause a person not much older than myself, who grew up in the same hometown, to have been exposed to a set of circumstances I could hardly imagine. Of course, these were not the first people I had ever met with an addiction, but when I tried to think of substance abuse, I didn't think of my best friend's stay-at-home mom, or a family friend who today is a partner at a law firm, both of whom are recovering alcoholics. I had been conditioned to see people with histories of substance use as separate from myself, as problems to be solved, meaning I had accepted a myth that addiction was an identifiable flaw in a human being. I was proud to provide some tangible amount of help to those who were recovering, and honestly, other than the relationships that I had built with this woman in the program, I'm not sure I would have been able to justify why I cared about this issue. Not, that is, until the first time I ever lost somebody to an overdose. During the summer of 2016, I was working in a drug court in San Francisco, California. I'll never forget being ushered into the office of the program manager and told that one of our clients had relapsed. I'd never met this mother. Since I'd started working at the court, she'd been completely AWOL, and I'd been sending out reports to her attorney and her social worker containing phrases like, client left treatment program, or case manager saw client sleeping outside of the library last night. Her child had been placed with her estranged husband, and he had been the one to receive notification of her death. He was the reason we found out, as he called the agency to essentially ensure that nobody from child welfare was going to call their daughter to tell her the news until she got home from summer camp. She was 6 years old. The treatment team began strategizing ways to support the father in telling the child, a child who will someday be 16, or 26, or 96, and will always have to remember the way she was told that her mother was dead. The client's case manager just sat in silence, beating herself up for not calling 4 times a day instead of 3. Other case managers were busy preparing to tell other clients of the court who had grown to know and love this woman, and for whom this might be a triggering experience to know of this relapse. Me? I was an intern in the court, and I was thinking about nothing and everything. I was thinking about how death is supposed to be this great equalizer, but it's not. How no one can live forever, but we are separated and judged and scrutinized in death in the same ways we are in life. The circumstances of your death will stay with you forever, and the way that you're remembered and the number of people you're remembered by is dictated by the same stigmas we face in life. That client, that mother, that friend will just be another deceased homeless person in America, reduced to a statistic and made to be an example of the drug epidemic. The people I had always known who had a hidden history of substance abuse had supportive friends, had important family, had a career, had hobbies, something else to define their humanity apart from their greatest struggle. This moment fundamentally shifted my view of myself. When I said that I cared about eradicating substance use, or poverty, or domestic violence, or mass incarceration, what I really meant is that human dignity was something universal and precious, something upon which I was unwilling to compromise. Originally, I came to West Virginia because I wanted to put my time and effort into helping those most in need, so my arrival in West Virginia was necessarily reactive. It seemed to suggest that I thought the real problem faced by Boone County and Appalachia writ large was that I, Rachel, hadn't gotten there to solve it yet. Instead, this community taught me more about the world than about myself, and I still can't fully describe all that it is that I learned. I saw the human dignity that I held as a fundamental truth had long been dismissed by those looking to profit off of the land and people of southern West Virginia, but I also saw unimaginable quantities of hope. I met people who could tell you exactly what was wrong and could diagnose exactly what they and their neighbors needed. I learned that real change is built over time, and that you can't help people you are trying to fix, and that no amount of expertise in the world can make up for the urgency that you assign to an issue when something you love is at stake. The story of my time in West Virginia is the story of how I accidentally fell in love with the smell of the mist that rises over the mountains with the sun. Of how I fell in love with a community of people who, when they introduce themselves, get through 5 or 6 things before they bother to tell you what they do for a living, because they know that life happens between the hours of 5 p.m. and 8 a.m. Of how I fell in love with people who took me in and shared fried bologna sandwiches and Tutor's biscuits. Of how I found myself on a mountaintop, or at a drug court graduation, or out on the Liverpool River, and couldn't find a way to respond to people's how you doings other than I'm grateful. Thanks for asking. It's a story of how I was humbled every day by the honorable and decent people who call this place home. People I want to serve not because they need me, but because they have already saved me.